What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome to the Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Modderno. I've got Kevin Broom of the So Wizards podcast joining me here tonight. Kevin, we just saw an absolute thriller, a barn burner. They almost beat one of the best teams in the NBA, the Milwaukee. We're a night too late. Sorry. They played the Atlanta Hawks. Let's see what the final score was there. 136 to 108. Close. Almost the same as last night's performance.
Hey,
So
they got the Wizards got a CBA point. They won the fourth quarter by one, but they escaped with a CBA point.
Yep. Yeah, we'll take it. That's a moral victories kind of podcast. Everybody knows that both you and I are sort of the pinnacles of open positivity and optimism at all times here. But
yes,
I was going to open with like, hey, look, this is a schedule loss. Like it really just it's tough on the back to back. You play the Hawks; they're a physical team with Giannis and Brook and those guys. But when you're a 2-13 team, like everything is a schedule loss. So I don't even think I can say that with a straight face at this point.
Yeah, if it's on the schedule, it's probably going to be a loss.
Right.
Although, Monday might be.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Like, is it a schedule loss in the sense, I mean, kind of. It's tough to play back-to-back, and obviously this is not a good team.
Sure.
And I mean, so if we want to be positive, let's start on a relatively positive note, and that is like last night against Milwaukee, I really thought the Wizards played just about as well as this roster could play. I mean, they got their asses kicked, but still, by Lopez and stuff. It's like everybody on the Bucks except for Giannis, Lopez, and Lillard had terrible games. Those guys played great, and it was really realistically about as good as they could possibly play. This is probably the reverse of that. They probably can't play much worse.
They just looked flat from the start to me. Like some of the passes that should be straightforward, like unimpeachable, everyone should make passes, were getting picked off. Guys were kind of throwing them lackadaisical and lofting them across half court, and no one was coming to the ball. It just looked like stuff you see from a team that got in at 3:00 in the morning or whatever they said it was. And they were kind of going through the motions, and they hung for a while. I actually was surprised they kind of hung around for as long as they did. And then I, honest to God, went to go get some Thanksgiving leftovers and came back to the TV. And I was like, holy shit, it's a 17-point game. Like, how did they do that so quickly? But this team has the unbelievable ability to just totally give up out of nowhere, it seems like.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly they can just let things just go. And in fairness, I was going to say in fairness to them and then say something really awful. But I guess in a sense, in fairness to the Wizards hanging close, I don't think that their effort was really all that much better in the first half. I don't think they played any better. I think it was just kind of like Atlanta
got rolling a little bit later.
Yeah, they just kind of Atlanta was lackadaisical as well, and especially in that first half, where they would get up, they would run up a lead, and then the Wizards would hit a few threes and sort of whittle it back. And then, Quinn Snyder would be like, "Hey, remember, you got to play some defense." And so in the third quarter, they locked in a little bit, and that was it. The Wizards just couldn't score.
Yeah, when a team like that wants to beat you, and you're the Wizards, especially on not fresh legs, you almost have no chance unless you shot some ungodly percentage. And I don't actually know. There's no way that's going to happen. So
no.
Have you, shifting gears here for a second, they lost Jordan Poole before the game even started. Have you ever heard of a player rolling an ankle so badly, 3 minutes before the game, that they can't actually play that night? I can't remember that happening.
I feel like that happened last season with Durant, that he injured himself in warmups, and this is after his trade to Phoenix. Okay. So I have seen that happen before. So
I've heard tender ankle, he's going to give it a go in the game, and then ultimately he couldn't go somewhere. But I guess maybe they just said look, second night of a back-to-back, we don't actually care about winning right now anyway. Why chance it? I was a little surprised that Coulibaly came back in later at the end of this game here when they had the victory cigar unit in. He looked flat to me too, and with the knee thing even being a question, I wouldn't have risked it personally.
I agree. I was a little surprised too, because I thought that he wasn't going to come back based on him not being out there with, like you said, the defeat cigar.
Yeah, exactly. The Hawks victory cigar.
I was a little puzzled about what the point was of having him out there, because he really wasn't doing anything. He was just kind of going through the motions too.
More cardio for him.
jogging through. He had played well in the first half.
Yeah.
So
he did make the one bad read I've ever seen from him in his entire time on the Wizards, where they were like moving the ball around the perimeter, and he was actually calling for it because he had Trae Young on him, and I was excited to see him like recognize that he's got this incredible mismatch, and then he ended up back in the right corner and drove in, and rather than just shoot like a 5-foot runner or something or a floater or anything, or dive all the way to the hoop and try to like force a foul, he tried to dump it down to Gafford and it got stolen for like a pick 6 layup.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's honestly like the first like obvious mistake I think I've seen him make in terms of just like reading what to do and what the defense is giving him, which says a lot that we've gotten this far.
Yeah, I agree. And I felt there were a few times, maybe 2 or 3 in the game where he overpassed, and that was definitely one of them. But I agree. That was like the first one that I can recall where it was like consequential.
Mm-hmm. Tonight especially felt like more pick 6 turnovers than I can remember a team having in a really long time. I think early in the third quarter or midway through the third quarter, they had like 15 turnovers to the Hawks, like 2 or 3 at that point. But it seemed like every time they turned the ball over, the Hawks scored. I actually don't have that in front of me. You know what the percentage of turnovers that they scored on was tonight, but it felt like a lot.
Let me pull it up here. Hold on. I've got got something here. Let's see. Points. No, they don't have points off turnovers. So but the Wizards had 20 turnovers, and certainly the Hawks capitalized on that. A lot of them, like you say, they were just really sloppy. The cross-court passes, the kind of obvious steal.
Especially with guys like DeJounte Murray. Like everyone plays in a game, and there are certain guys you don't even like attempt a close pass around. Like teams don't do that around DeLon Wright anymore after he had like 5 steal games in a row. And DeJounte's out there and they're just like, here, let me loft this ball softly across the middle of the court with him on like an open lane. That was terrible.
So I loved DeJounte Murray. When he got traded to the Hawks, I actually wanted the Wizards to trade because I'm like, if you're going to go all in on this, with Beal and these guys, DeJounte Murray to me would have been like the perfect pairing.
Agreed.
DeJounte Murray's spirit animal is Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He just reminds me so much of him.
Yeah.
And he's averaged like a triple-double per 100 possessions. He's been one of the few guys over it's like each of the last 2-3 seasons, something like that. Yep. His last season in San Antonio, he was sensational. He wasn't quite as good in Atlanta. I think there was, they were working.
It's a weird fit early,
but they seem to have. Quinn Snyder being a better coach helps, and they seem to have figured that out. And Murray, he just goes hard, and he's long and just rangy, and it's not like ideal shooter and that kind of stuff, but he makes a lot of plays. I really like him. Good player.
I would take 3 of him. Granted, he seems like a total weirdo, and the more we hear him talk, the less I like of him as a player. But
I haven't heard him speak. So
yeah, you're better off. He seems like a strange dude, and like he's from Seattle, and Paulo Banchero's from Seattle, and he was chirping at him about a pickup game and saying just like really like off the rails stuff. So I don't know. But anyway, I would happily take him on this roster because I think
absolutely
he's a dude you could build around, and he'd be like an instant floor raiser for a team. Also, point of attack defense would be amazing to actually see again.
Yeah, could you imagine like a backcourt him like Wright, got Coulibaly, and then fill in some other guys.
Yeah, throw Deni and Gafford out there together and just good luck, team.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys aren't amazing, but they're the best of the other guys that they have.
He could go get some other players.
Yeah, the Deni defense was tough tonight. I mean, I guess if he's sick and also not much rest, I think that kind of exacerbates the problem. So you know what? I'll give him a pass. The Kuzma passing, it was funny. Like he basically for like 8 straight possessions alternated like spoon feeding a look to one of his teammates, like a drop down to Gafford for a wide open dunk, to just like rolling the ball to the other team and letting them run out for a layup. I was so conflicted of like, okay, he just created like a really nice wide open look for a teammate. Oh, he just created a really nice wide open look for DeJounte Murray. And it was a hard watch for like a 5-minute stretch there.
I mean, it feels like that's kind of the Kuzma experience in a lot of ways. You see him. I've said this before. You watch him play. There are times where he looks like he is the best player on the planet or among them.
Yeah.
And then there are other times you're like, what?
Why did you do that? Yeah.
Why? Yeah. And sometimes I think he just sort of gets a little like, out over his skis. He tries to make a play that's spectacular, and it's just not there.
I think that's like the literal exact perfect expression for him. It's just out over his skis. It's like this thing I can do. Maybe I just got a little ahead of myself there. Like I probably shouldn't have tried that. You push the envelope like a little too much. And it seems like whenever he messes up, it has like the most dire circumstances for the rest of the team. Like they're compounded by the other team always capitalizing on it too. And when you're the biggest guy on the court half the time, because he's basically the same height as Gafford, and you're the point guard at the top of the key with the ball, and you should get your pocket picked. Picket pocked. That was a good one. My pocket picked by a 6'5" guard. It's just going to end poorly every time. And it's partly his fault, but it's also partly a product of the roster. The fact that like Tyus Jones is out there and just literally can't create an easy look for anyone else on the team, I think really limits them a lot too.
Tyus Jones is somebody I have. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Monty Morris.
Yep.
But he's somebody I like him. I think he's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously not the right fit as a starting guard in Washington. Not for any time of long term. He's much
could be
more
the starting point guard for like Phoenix or something and be great.
But he'd be fantastic. But he needs, he needs the weapons around him, because he's like that Monty Morris where they keep the ball moving, system assist. If you are running a pin down and you need him to like dribble to one side and then spin back and hit the pass just as the guy's coming off and coming open, he'll do that, and he'll deliver the ball right in the shooter's pocket and all that kind of stuff. He's very good at that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for a guy to break down a defender and draw
there's no advantage creation whatsoever.
No. Then they don't really have anybody who does that. I mean, Kuzma a little, Jordan. No, I'm not Jordan Poole at all. Even if he played.
Unfortunately, Kuzma's the best of the bunch, and that's literally the problem with the whole roster right there. If he's your best guy to do that, you have no shot.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. Kuzma, he's a good and useful player in the right place. I think he's probably playing about the best he has in his career overall.
Agreed. Yeah,
and it's just he's way overslotted for what he does. He should be really like your fourth, fifth, maybe sixth best player on a good team, and he's the best player on the team.
If you put him on somewhere like Milwaukee, I think that would make them like a title favorite. And if I'm them, I'd trade a first round pick tomorrow to do something like that. But it's here. I don't know, maybe it's more fun for him to be this kind of dude and, talk about like, me and Giannis were going at each other. Like, I don't know, there's maybe something to that. There's a lot of irrational confidence guys. So,
yeah. And I mean, I will say he's gone up against guys like, he was really competitive with Julius Randle.
Yep.
He definitely did try to compete with Giannis. That didn't go well, but it doesn't go well for anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
He and Miles Bridges went at each other a bit. So,
yeah, it was a little disappointing to hear him talk about his best buddy Miles Bridges after that game, but that's okay. That's a topic for another day. I guess when you go back with someone, it's tougher, but still.
Yeah.
All right. So bad passing, talked about that. Coulibaly again looked a little flat to me, even for him. Like he was fine. This is clearly not going to be remembered as the Bilal Coulibaly game, and it's not going to be remembered for anyone. I saw a lot of Point Kuzma tweets and how terrible that experiment is. The Point Deni experiment is over before it started. Like I just don't. That was one of the comments we got on last show, was that if the Wizards had Point Deni, they'd be competing for the 8th seed right now, and maybe they'd be the 8th seed in their flight in the in-season tournament, but not in the actual playoff standings.
8th seed out of 5, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no way that the Wizards would be 8th if they'd been playing Avdija at point guard all season. As we've pointed out countless times, he does not have a functional left hand in terms of being able to attack. His ball handling overall is he's too slow and shaky with the ball when he's pressured, and he gets picked. If the Wizards tried to start him by like the second or third game, he'd be getting full court pressure every time. He'd probably be turning it over quite a bit. The offense would be wrecked before it even got started. And then they would have Kuzma coming back to bring the ball up. They would have lots of other. It's not going to work. If he can, I wouldn't say never. It's just,
you can do
but
it situationally.
realistically,
Yeah.
well, situationally, like he can bring the ball up. Obviously, he can grab and go.
Grab and go is ideal for him, and nothing more than that. That's it.
Yeah, he's not a point guard, and again today you saw like Atlanta really sat on the right hand. They just forced him to his left, and he couldn't attack. He couldn't get shots. He couldn't really get to any kind of meaningful passes. He couldn't get back over to his right hand. What he needs is that play they ran for him last season where he comes off of screens on the baseline, turns the corner, and catches the pass at a full run, going to his right. And, when he comes up on the right-hand side of the floor, he really does. He's hemmed in. The only place he can go is to the sideline.
He ends up in the corner and then has to kick it back to somebody at the middle of the court, and then they start everything over again. Yeah, that's just tough.
It's just, and, I feel like overall he's had pretty much, certainly the best season of his career so far.
I have no complaints, honestly. Like I really don't. Like
it's just, he's not a point guard.
Yeah.
And he's not really a playmaker. He's a secondary, third, tertiary, maybe a fourth guy, but
it's a useful player. It's just not a reasonable expectation to think that all the stuff you're seeing like Kuzma do when he's a point guard, you'd see the same thing from Deni. Honestly, he's a worse ball handler, and the vision isn't any considerably better in my opinion. So it'd just be a lot of the same, like some really bad turnovers for runouts.
Yeah, Kuzma is a much more skilled player overall, and even with the ball handling, that kind of stuff. I will say I was watching, of course, the Hawks broadcast, and Dominique was he described. So Bob Rathman, who's the play-by-play guy, who I actually knew from his days at Old Dominion, he was TV broadcaster for the Old Dominion Monarchs. And anyway, Rathman said, that was a wild shot from Avdija on one of his drives, and Dominique said that wasn't a shot. But he didn't mean it like he meant it more like that was just a heave. It was just a prayer. There was no shot. And then Avdija drove again and threw up something, and Dominique's comment was he's just out of control when he gets into the lane. He's out of control.
There was a lot of Wizards fans that were watching on League Pass and talking about just how brutal the commentary was from the Hawks broadcast about the Wizards, and I think it's just that's going to be the case all year.
So it's funny because not this last game against Milwaukee, but the previous one when the Wizards got shellacked by Milwaukee, and Marcus Johnson was making a few comments. And my son Joe, we call him the King of Shade because he'll say something and you'll not really hear it, and then suddenly you'll be like, wait a minute,
just buried me, right?
And Marcus Johnson was making some of those kinds of shady comments, and my son, he just turns, he says, "Man, that guy is savage."
Yeah, when you tip your cap to somebody, it's like, okay, well, all right, got us.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the chat here a little bit. Never Makes No Sense said, do we have a chance to set the loss record? I actually don't know what that is off the top of my head, but yes.
So there's two ways of looking at like the loss record. So one was like the 2011-12 Charlotte Bobcats. They had the worst. That was the lockout season.
Yeah.
And they had the worst winning percentage ever. They went 7-59 that season.
Okay.
And the worst record, I believe, was the 9-73 Sixers.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Wizards can
that'd be tough. Yeah.
Get there. I think that they're more like my prediction machine says they're about a 20-win team. So I think they could probably get there.
This is going to sound really fucking stupid, and everybody's going to like roast me for this. I think I would still take the over. I think they're going to get really close to it. If this team like cleans a little bit of stuff up and they're like plucky and fresh legged at the end of the year, and some of these other teams don't give a shit. Like the year that the Wizards made the playoffs with Westbrook and they went like 30-7 down the stretch or whatever that crazy amount was, like I could see this team not doing something to that extreme, obviously, but like just catching a lot of teams on the second night of back-to-backs. Like they're at home a lot down the stretch. Yeah. So I could see them like piling on a couple wins that maybe makes us nervous as far as tank perspective is going here. But they're obviously not competing for the playoffs or anything, no matter what happens the rest of the way.
I would not take the over. I think they're going to be bottom 3 for sure. Okay. I think.
I mean, low 20s probably still gets you in that range, I would think.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to get past 24.5.
Yeah, it'd be tough. Yeah, I honestly, I think like that's probably Vegas knows. You know what I mean? Like somehow if they get to that number, like, shit, how do they do this?
It's unbelievable how accurate they're able to be. Where they set these lines.
It's Biff going back in time with that almanac. Anyway, it never makes no sense. Says, does Coulibaly have any shot long term of being a point guard? I don't think so personally in the pure point guard sense, but the same kind of thing of can you put him next to a Deni Kuzma, have secondary, tertiary creator kind of deal? Yeah, I don't see why not. I think he makes a lot of just like really smart, savvy plays especially for a 19-year-old. I think that'll only get better. The way like a prime Nick Batum moved the ball or a prime Iguodala moved the ball for a team. Like it wasn't like a point guard, but it's like a really good, mover of the ball for people. I see that.
Yeah, I don't really see a point guard, but I am perfectly willing to be wrong on that. I thought of him. I evaluated him in the draft as a wing. I saw him when he came in. He seems wing to me, but the Wizards seem to think he can play guard, which is probably a pretty good indicator. And I will say, in terms of like things like the basics, the ball handling, he does seem to have some court vision. I want to see him get more opportunities in that. They did run him a little bit, after Avdija had a turn trying to run point. They did have Coulibaly bring the ball up a few times and initiate the offense. But I'd like to see them get him into some more like pick and roll type of things, or to run some of the kinds of sets that they'll run, for like Jordan Poole, where again the other night where he like they love to start offense with like that horn set, and you get pass the ball into the big man, and Poole was passing it to Gallinari, and then you cut towards the ball or you cut away from the ball. But if you cut towards, it's just a simple handoff, in which you can end up with a lot of times is an open three. Poole got some open threes he missed, but they were still open threes. They're good. I mean, it's a well-designed play. Look, and then if they play out on you, then you take the handoff and you just take off, and you get to see Coulibaly's explosion and going to the basket, driving to the basket with maybe a half-step advantage on his man.
I think so. I'd love to see him do that than most. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of like the guys they have who are more or less wings and theoretically point guards, I think he's got the best chance of becoming a point guard of any of them.
Give him the reps and find out. I mean, like this is the time. And even again, if he only has to do it here and there, it still gives you more versatility. If anybody can run those actions, like a lot of these coaching staffs, some of the plays they put in, guys are like practicing 1-2 positions at most, and they're supposed to know where all their other teammates are supposed to be on it. But if you could let Coulibaly play any one of 1 through 4 in a different, in a set, that'd be great. I mean, you have like a Horns 5 thing, and it's him and Gafford. Like Sam Hershey, who's in the chat here, was asking me earlier about like why they never like throw lobs to people, especially in transition. It's like because they couldn't execute on basic passes tonight, let alone throw any kind of lobs. But Coulibaly's like one of the few guys I trust to do it. He's made some like really decent touch passes so far, and those are the kinds of things I don't really expect from a rookie, honestly. So, if you're used to throwing stuff to Wembanyama, I think why not? Well, it's basically the same to throw him to Gafford, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons they don't throw many lobs in transition is that you kind of need somebody to get there, to be in that spot, and close enough where they can actually like have a chance of going to get it. I think they tried to do some more of that. I think earlier in the season, the first few games they were a little lob happy, and I suspect they tried to dial it back a bit because a lot of them were ending up as turnovers because everybody wants that spectacular pass so that Gafford can get the dunk, but you have to have him open or be able to pass him open in a way.
Sam also asked, how do young guys not get demoralized with all this losing? I want to save that one for Jihadi and weigh in, Sam, so we'll get back to you on that one. Big J52 asks, so when does a coach change his scheme to fit the understanding and ability of his players? Wes's stuff does not fit these guys. Cater the scheme to what players excel at doing, offense and defense. I don't think the scheme is the problem here necessarily. I think it's the execution and the skill set of the players that, like, You hear broadcasters say this because it's not a joke. Like 85% of what every team is running is the exact same thing. It's who they run it for and when that really changes. And the terminology around it is even pretty similar for a lot of these teams. So the other worst teams in the league can execute on the same shit we're failing to execute on. I think that's really more the issue here.
Yeah, I don't think it's scheme because they're not doing anything. Well, okay, how can I say this? They're not doing anything that's like rare, but they're running basic sets for guys. And the system that they're running, those kinds of horns, the delay actions, the handoffs, the
little Spain pick and roll every once in a while.
Yeah, the Chicago's, all that kind of stuff is pretty standard stuff around the league. Most teams are running a system that's based on that. This isn't NBA teams. You have a playbook of specials, right? Sideline out of bounds, baseline out of bounds, last second, buzzer beaters, those kinds of things. Like we're talking offensive. On defense, you have also some specials as well. But teams don't really have playbooks in the sense of like the way they used to, where you have a zone offense and you run this, that kind of stuff. So what most teams are running is system. And when the system is, every team is asking players to make decisions, but you're also empowering them to make decisions. And you're basically letting guys be players. And I don't think the Wizards get any more advantage by being more prescribed in their offense. And they're already doing stuff that's like, if you go through and you watch Jordan Poole's shots, for example, like from the last couple games, they're running on him off of stagger screens. They're, running him. They're starting him on like the weak side baseline, or they're starting him in one corner, and then they'll have a screen, and then they'll have two more big setting screens for him. And then he, pops out, you throw him the ball and he's supposed to get the shot up or attack or something. But the whole point is to get him the ball in a little bit of space so that he can get a shot or make a play, and doing it in a way that's, off ball, where he's not having to create the entire play himself. And
that's not works at all.
It kind of works here and there, but it's just, it's tough. And they're doing the same kinds of things for Kispert. They'll run, they love to run that from I don't know what the play is called, but they do it.
He's on the right wing and then circles around the baseline to the left corner.
Yeah, it goes through the whole thing, and they'll have three screens for him. Jordan Poole just laid somebody out on one of them.
Which I actually love seeing, by the way, is the only pick he's connected on the whole season, I think.
Yeah, I know, right? But we caught him. So they are doing stuff like that. But it's just, there's a limit to what you can do when the roster is this bereft of talent.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things, right? Like, this is what sets you apart from the really good teams. Every one of those teams has two guys that just break down a play, and nobody can really contain. The Wizards don't have one of those guys, essentially. And it's what you talked about with Kuzma. You're slotting, to me, he's like a third or fourth best player, but you're playing him as a one, and he gets no advantage creation. So then guys like him, if he were the third or fourth best guy, they'd be getting a lot more open looks, and efficiency gets better, and all those other kind of things. It just has like a downstream effect for everyone on the team.
Yeah. And then I will say, one of the pinch points, if you will, on running a system where you empower players to make decisions and then make plays on their own, is that you may have a pattern that's developing. Your pattern may be getting ready to produce something, but if Kuzma sees something, or if Poole sees something, or if Avdija sees something, if a guy sees something and thinks they have an advantage, they're empowered to go get their shot, to go make a play. And if they're wrong, and then the play breaks down and you don't score. And the reality is like, that's a lot of what basketball talent is at this level, is that ability to make decisions. And the Wizards
read and react to everything.
Poor decision making. I mean, Jordan Poole is a colossally, staggeringly bad decision maker.
Since we're gonna
catching strays on a night where he didn't even play.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he was a little better in the Milwaukee game, like a little bit better, like a little bit. Just give me a little bit here, Kevin. I need to think that. Okay, I need to be able to just get by on. We're making incremental improvement, if small increments only.
Yeah, I would say a little better. I think that part of what we might be seeing that makes us think he's a little better is them taking him off ball a little bit more and running him off screens, getting him the ball in motion, that kind of thing,
which is what he needs. And everyone talks about how he was exclusively on the ball in Golden State. Like that's not true. Like he would play next to Draymond, who's dribbling the ball up the court, and then like a dribble handoff with Draymond, and he'd have a wide open look because Draymond's leveling some guy on the screen. Like this, we have to play Poole on as a full time. He needs the ball in his hands more because that's what he did in Golden State thing. Like that, I don't think that's true. The on ball usage here isn't the issue. Like if you go look at their percentages, I would imagine they're probably pretty close, but that's just how it looks to me, at least.
Yeah, I don't think that Golden State really didn't have anybody who dominated the ball, which is kind of crazy to think. But I mean, like Steph Curry, as great as he is, they don't really keep him on ball that much. He certainly has. I'm sure he leads the team in touches. But you see like that highlight from the other night where he, drove into the basket. Wembanyama was there, and so he stops, hits the brakes, passes it out, and immediately sprints out to the 3-point line, relocates, hits a three. It's like that's kind of the Warriors' system. When Harden says he's the system, Steph is the system.
Yeah. Okay.
But so there's that. I don't think that that's really the answer. I mean, a big thing is that I think Poole needs to figure out how to make better decisions with the ball. And the other thing too is, when he was in Golden State, a lot of his like plus efficiency came when he was on the floor with Curry. If you look at it, when he was on the floor with Curry, he got to the rim more, he shot higher percentages, he committed fewer turnovers. And when Curry sat, he got to the rim less. His average shot distance went up by almost 2 feet. And his 3-point percentage didn't go down very much, but his 2-point percentage plummeted, and he committed way more turnovers. He went from like 3 per 100 possessions to about 5. And if you look, his overall numbers in Washington are kind of similar to what they looked like when he was on the floor without Curry. So
he's also creating less for other people too. And I think part of that in Golden State, that if you give the ball up, but you get open, you'll get the ball back. I feel like he's almost not willing to trust that will happen here. And I don't know that I blame him, to be honest with you, but also when you've got guys like Steph and Clay that take so much attention away, it's really easy for him to now I'm in single coverage and I can drive and kick to somebody else if they collapse. When you're the number one guy here and no one is leaving you wide open for stuff, like it's just a different thing. Like he can't create those disadvantages for people like Steph, and Steph's gravity, Clay's gravity created mismatches for him to exploit. No one does that here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also he wants this to be his team. He wants this, the my team thing is big with him. And I think the other thing is, I mentioned this in writing a few weeks ago, that he's enamored with the spectacular, in the sense of like, he's like the teen driver who thinks that being skilled means handling the car, maneuvering the car at a high rate of speed in the tight area. And that's a little bit, I think, a good description of Poole as a player, is that he wants to make the spectacular play. He wants to hit the tough shot over the 7-footer. Like when they play San Antonio, I fully expect him to attack and go straight at Wembanyama and try to.
He's going to get another 3 swatted in the 10th row again.
Yeah, exactly. And he wants to make the spectacular pass through traffic, even though it's got a low likelihood of success. But if it goes through, that's on ESPN tomorrow.
That was Jihadi's thing last podcast too. He kept talking about how Poole always has this flair for the dramatic, and he wants to make like the big highlight play. And it's like, it's not going to go out.
Yeah. No, I would love to see them convince him to just make the basic plays. Just look, if you're driving in, that there's somebody on you, the corner, just throw the ball to the corner. You don't have to like loop back and throw it back to the weak side corner through all 5 defenders.
Right. Yeah, that would be a novel idea, right? Yeah. Ryan S asks, will we ever see a Bilal game where he has 12 plus field goal attempts? Would Wes enable that? He should, in Ryan's opinion. Ryan, I agree with you. I think we should see a game where he has 25 attempts. I don't give a shit. Like every game, he should get as many shots as they can realistically create for him. And also he can try to create for himself. So I want to see Kevin, you've written about this extensively, right? Like the more usage for him, the better. And I think everyone wants to see that. And I hope that that's what they're ramping up toward.
So the reason I'm chuckling is because I just pulled up the game log, and it's just funny that he asked about use 12 as the benchmark, because he has 2 games this season where he's taken 12 shots.
I like that. There you go.
So, but I've written about this. I've studied it, about the cutoff for a future all-star as a teen rookie is 15% usage. Coulibaly is
like
probably
8
about
right
13. Now. I think he's about 13%.
Okay, that's not bad.
So he's not bad. But I do think that they should be, I think what they ought to do is think about what role do they want him? What do they see him being next season, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? It's just start him on it. You know, sort of like what Seattle, Oklahoma City did with Kevin Durant. Yep. Durant was terrible as a rookie. He really sucked.
Yeah.
And
they put him at the 2 and just let him learn through all of it.
Yeah. And I mean, LeBron as a rookie was impressive for a rookie, but he was
not a crazy, he was only okay. Player. Yeah. Right.
His efficiency blew. It was terrible. And I think that the Wizards would do well. Like if you see him as a Coulibaly as a, pick and roll guy, start running him in pick and roll.
Yep.
If what you see him is he's a 3-and-D guy, well, okay. I think he can do more than that. But if that's what you see for his future, I mean, go ahead and just put him in that role, I guess, but get him more looks.
Joe Swams said, do us a solid here and give us a couple likes to this video. I appreciate you, Joe. Always looking out for us. Yeah, if everybody can hit that little like button, that helps us be discoverable to other Wizards fans, and we grow the little community, have a little more chats. It's all great. Apologies if I'm saying this wrong. And Kazar Warrior asked, if the Wizards found a genie, what would their 3 wishes for them to start winning be? Really just asking what are the 3 things they would need to change to win. I love the way you asked that in the first place, because anything that involves a genie with the Wizards is perfect for me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything they could do to want to win or do to win this year. I don't think that's in the cards for them or even something they want to do. But realistically, point of attack defense, add a generational superstar to create mismatches for everybody else. And I don't know, trade for Giannis, trade 2 second-round picks to get Giannis, and then maybe they could start winning this year.
Yeah. For this year, I don't think that the winning is anything realistic. I mean, I guess if Deni suddenly started being able to use his left hand and, Poole started, actually started playing like Harden did that first year in Houston, maybe you get there. And you could figure out a way that they can actually execute the defense successfully. They're not doing anything complex, but they're not executing it very well.
My guy Blake asked, can you talk about why the Wizards defense is so bad? The points allowed is like 2nd worst in the league, and the differential is 3rd worst. How much time you got, Blake? Because I think we could do a whole thing. I want to do a video breakdown of this at some point here. I'm just lazy, and that takes some work. But point of attack defense is really bad. So guys are always blown by, and now you've got everybody scrambling, but they don't seem particularly cohesive or locked in on how to actually rotate. So guys are haphazardly trying to help, but not really fully committing. And then you have Gafford kind of run out and just wildly swat at everything that gets shot up around him, which I kind of don't blame him for, the amount of stuff that comes to him that probably shouldn't. And then nobody fills in behind Gafford. They give up a lot of second chance points or a lot of kickouts. They're just pretty much bad in every aspect of defense. And I think that's really tough. Like, you could be bad around the rim if your perimeter defense is great, or certain teams like funnel everybody to the rim because that's just what they're willing to give up. Like, you can kind of pick and choose. You can't really prevent everything in the NBA unless you have like elite personnel who are all bought into your scheme there. But they just don't seem to do any aspect particularly good on that end of the floor, Kevin. That's my take on things. I don't know how you see it.
Very similar. I think point of attack, I think you really nailed it with that. So the way most teams defend in the NBA is with force rules. And the general principle that virtually every team has used is you force the ball to the sideline, baseline,
middle kind of stuff.
Yeah. You basically you'll hear, back when I listened to the Wizards broadcast, you'd hear Drew Gooden every now and then talk about, letting somebody get middle. What he's talking about is the force rules. And Tyus Jones does a really poor job of keeping guys out of the middle. He just does a really poor job of controlling penetration. Jordan Poole also does a very poor job. Deni Avdija does not very good job with that. Really, nobody on the perimeter does a particularly good job.
Deni's just solidly straight up, and I think he struggles more so against guards because he's not quick enough to force those guys there and then recover anywhere.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's tough because he's 6'9". He should be guarding guys like Julius Randle, frankly, and you've got him out there trying to chase around Jalen Brunson. That's a tough cover for him.
Yeah.
So, and that could be a big reason why his defensive impact over the last couple, last season and this season is down significantly from where it was, 2 seasons ago, his second season. So, I think that's a big part of it. Gafford also is not a particularly he's a decent rim protector, but he can't cover for the breakdowns that are happening in front of him.
Prime Wilt Chamberlain couldn't do that either. Prime Wilt Chamberlain next to Hakeem Olajuwon could not do that.
Like, I think you could put Rudy Gobert on this roster, and they would still be the worst defense in the league, or pretty close to it, because the point of attack defense is so bad. And then compound that with the rebounding is so bad, and a lot of that is, the rebounding is a team thing. It's not really like on one individual player, but you need guys going back to the glass to get the rebounds. And that I feel like when shots go up, there's a lot of just turning and watching instead of like finding a body boxing out. And I guarantee you, if you've ever sat in on a film session at the NBA level, I guarantee that these things are being pointed out to the players, that they're being talked about to the players, that there's probably some 4-letter words going on in there. And, the players ultimately have to take some pride in it and get their asses up on the boards and get the rebounds. That's really what it is. And one of the problems is like tonight, early in the broadcast, Dominique and Bob Rathbun were talking about this. The Wizards are a really bad defensive rebounding team, and so this is a great opportunity. Get the ball up on the rim and go get it. And that's kind of what the Hawks did. The Hawks ended up with 17 offensive rebounds tonight. And so when teams when they know that you've got a mark, when they know they've got a team that doesn't rebound, they're going to go a little extra to get those rebounds and do some more scoring.
I do think some amount of this is effort too. It's just I've talked about this a couple times, but the soft switching is really tough for me to watch sometimes. Like, if you've got Gafford is guarding Capella and I don't know, Tyus is on Trae Young, and they just immediately switch that without asking Tyus to try to fight over the screen. Like, you have no chance. Like, you've basically given up that possession because it's either Trae is going to cook Gafford and score, or Capella is going to clean that up on the rim, because nobody is ever going to like help out there at all. So the play is kind of over before it began. And certain teams can do that. I really understand that. Like, if you're Toronto and you want to switch everything just immediately, cool. Yeah, that's why you built your team that way. You can't do that with this personnel.
Yeah, one of the games where that really jumped out was when they played Dallas, and you had the possession would start with Avdija on Luka, which is about the right matchup that you'd want, and then Dallas would run they would just have somebody run through the area, and then
switch immediately.
Tyus Jones switched onto him. It's at least make them set the screen before you switch. Especially now in the NBA where the ball screens, so many of them are not like real screens. They're slipping, they're ghosting.
I'm going to barely touch you and then just roll. Yeah.
Just make them do it. And then I think that was the game where I started to wonder, like, when Coulibaly came in, did they change the coverage? Because Coulibaly wasn't switching.
We were texting about this because I thought the same thing. Like, he was the only one that was like, nope, fighting around this one.
And then like the couple games later, there he is doing the soft switching too. So
exactly.
It's like, I don't know what the answer there is, except I don't like it that much.
Yeah,
I would rather at least make them set the screen.
That's the thing you should do. If you have mostly young, fresh legs, like, that would be your one advantage, especially if you trade some of these vets away. Like, you're not going to like be able to have Gallinari fight around screens or something like that. Like, there's certain things you can't do there. But when you have, I don't know, like Johnny Davis, Rollins, Amarui, and Coulibaly out there together, those 4 guys, let them fight around everything. I mean,
Yeah.
they're fast enough maybe to recover too if they get hung up on somebody.
And then, use some help, because we talked about like, why is the defense so bad? I mean, there's another reason that we sort of touched on, but this happens a lot. So the Wizards, like, for example, the way they play pick and roll is they bring over the weak side defender from the wing usually to come over to what's called the nail in the NBA. So you're familiar with this.
Middle of the free throw line for everybody.
Yeah, middle of the free throw line, where there might still be, but there used to be a nail in the court in that spot, at least anyway. And so you bring a help defender, and that help defender is basically supposed to turn the ball handler back to his man. So that way the center, who's probably in drop, because that's usually how they use Gafford, is supposed to be able to get back to his man. The ball handler gets back on his man, and you've basically stalled the pick and roll. You make a reset and do something. So the Wizards will have a nail defender. The guy gets to the spot, and then he just kind of stands there and doesn't really do anything. It's like, no, you have to actively defend. It's not enough to just get to the spot.
I want to say it was the Philly game, and I feel like I was texting you about this too, because I was very confused about what they were doing. They were trying to have Kuzma be like, I couldn't tell if he was like the help man just to deter the pass, or he was supposed to double and not doing it. Like, I really couldn't understand what was happening. It ended up just being him kind of caught in the middle. And I honestly just didn't know what they were supposed to, like, this is the thing where, like, I think NBA defense is actually like sneaky hard to evaluate, because you don't know what the guy's responsibility was there. Like, now if we were in the film room and they were pointing out, hey, you were supposed to do this there, a little easier to tell. But sometimes it's just like, it could have been anyone on the team's fuck up realistically. And I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure which play exactly, but I know that there were a couple of plays where Kuzma was in a position to like double Embiid, and then just kind of wandered back to his man. And then there was one where Avdija was like right there, and then Embiid just turned, was like right in his face, and Avdija just stood there not noticing, and Embiid just laid it in. And it's like, come on, you're there to make a play, or even if you're not, the play is still right in front of you. Make a play.
Exactly. Yeah, do something. And that's the thing Coulibaly was doing, was he would just honestly think he was breaking the defense a little bit sometimes, to just go, you know what, I can steal this ball, or I can weak side block this. And that's the thing. You can be a little bit more creative when you have a few of those guys that are plus athletes. And that was the thing that I thought they would change with Tommy Shepard, because that's what he kept saying. And then you looked at all the guys he drafted, and none of them were ever going to come in and be plus defenders. I know everyone says this is revisionist history, but nobody was drafting Deni Avdija for his defense. Like, that's just, it's been a nice icing on the cake that he's turned into one of the better defenders on the team the last several years. But that's not what you were bringing him in for. Like, he was not, you weren't drafting him to be DeAndre Hunter or somebody that looked like an elite defensive prospect coming out of Virginia. And honestly, his defense has been kind of meh. So I don't know.
I will say one thing I just want to emphasize. I mean, we've been rough on Deni a bit today. I'm really actually like the season that he's having.
He's been great. I have no complaints about him.
I think he's actually having a solid season. Yeah. He's a good, solid player, and I think that he's got a role on a good team. It's just he's not a point guard. He's should be in that like 12 to 15% usage. He should be a kind of jack of all trades defender. Definitely grab and go, make some plays coming, going to his right, that kind of thing. Shoot open shots, and otherwise just keep the ball moving. I think he's good with those things, and he's feisty. He's competitive. I like all those things about him. It's just he's limited, and the Wizards are putting him, by the nature of their team, they're putting him into positions where his limitations are getting exposed.
Yeah, guys like he and Kuzma are miscast. I mean, that's just what it turns into, and that's going to happen in a rebuild, and you're going to see them do some things that they're honestly just not capable of doing. And that's okay to find out now too. Like, I actually don't mind them doing some point Deni stuff. You just saying that that's the reason they're not winning is crazy. It's cool to try. I don't really have any problem with them trying anything this season. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, they're not losing because they're trying stuff. I think they're trying stuff like point Deni
because they're losing. Yeah, exactly.
And you might as well see. And then, if he learns something and does the workshopping and comes back more skilled,
Yeah.
great.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. This will be like identifying things for them to add to their summer to-do lists, right? Like, okay, you got killed in this, so try X, Y, C, B, C drills, like just
Yeah.
so anyway. Joe said, I read on Twitter today, this was an Andy Bailey tweet. I saw this one too, Joe. I was going to put this up. The Wizards have been outscored by 202 points when Jordan Poole is on the floor. That's the worst raw plus minus in the league this season. Ahead of Jeremy Sohan, who's 40 some points different. Yeah. I mean, it's been tough. Like let's wait until he sucks the next game to talk more about how bad Jordan Poole's been. We'll give ourselves the night off since he took the night off.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when you get a guy who basically tanks the offense and the defense.
I tweeted this out tonight, and I actually got less crushed for it than I expected. I said, is Landry Shamet the best overall shooting guard on the roster? And honestly, I meant two-way by overall. Like, he's the best combination of offense and defense of the Kispert, Jordan Poole trio, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's not great, but he's basically the only one of the two playing defense. So by virtue of that, I think you have to be the best two-way guy if you're the only one that guards anyone.
Yeah, I think it's one. I think you're probably correct. Two, I would say the thing that surprised me about Shamet, he's a lot feistier than I thought.
Yeah, I like that.
You see him getting like the timeout where he got in everybody's grill and was like, no,
they need it. Yeah.
Was clapping at them. That was in the Milwaukee game I'm talking about. And, they ran that last play for him. I think that was really cool. But obviously,
should have taken his time a little bit more. I would have liked to just take survey, then shoot. But he has kind of a weird release too. So I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like a high, like the shoot at the height of his jump, shoot a flat shot kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that he's very likely to be traded sooner rather than later. I think it would be kind of silly to keep him around. I like him. I think he's been fine. He's been pretty much as advertised. A little more dunking than I expected, but
I did not know he could do that. I'll be very honest with you. And did you see he tried to catch Capella? I think it was either Capella or Conway. I think Capella, and it did not end well for him.
No, it did not. But that's the feistiness that I was talking about. I mean, I like that about him. So.
Josue Gonzalez said contending teams love Shamet. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they're getting calls about him already. Yeah. I don't know how much they're going to get for him, but I don't know. I'd take a second round pick back at this point. Like, he's not in your long-term plan. So why not? Let's see. Ryan S asked, what are your thoughts on our broadcast team? I thought they were okay last year, but to me, they're brutal this year. So, Kevin does not listen to the local broadcasts, which is probably keeps him sane a lot of times.
So real quick, the reason I don't listen to the broadcasts is because I disagree with you completely, Ryan. They were brutal last year. They were brutal the year before. They were absolutely. I listened to, in previous seasons, I've listened to a mix of the opposing team's broadcast and the Wizards broadcast, and I felt it was really clear that the Wizards had the worst broadcast in the league by far. Like, the differential in their rebounding this season. So I just cut them off this season. I listen only. I live outside market, so I can listen to whatever I want.
Yeah, I'm really jealous.
Anyway, you were saying.
No, I'm jealous of that because I have League Pass, and I just wish I could watch the condensed Wizards games. Because especially this season, there are some times where, like, I'll go play basketball and want to come back and watch the whole game later while I'm winding down after. And it's like, I already know they lost by 30. I would love to just watch the 40-minute version of the game instead of the 2.5-hour one, but you can't get that until 4 days later or whatever, which is terrible. I might move just solely to do that. But the broadcast together, I just think it's not serious enough for me and my personal tastes. You need a straight man, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think either of them do that. And so when you have a Chris Miller and Christy Winter-Scott together, I thought they were really good because Christy is the straight person and she's sitting there and she's like, okay, on this play, Gafford should have done this. And Shamet came down to try to help make up for it. But you could see he gets beat here because he wasn't actually supposed to be doing that. And you're seeing like actual technical analysis of what went wrong on the play. And that does not happen very often when you hear Gooden and Miller together. But I still maintain that when Gooden was the third man in a booth with both Buckhantz and Chenier, I found him like a really pleasant addition to that. and he's a better broadcaster overall now with a couple of seasons of work. But the type of analysis and coverage just isn't it for me. I know some people who actually really love them. I like both of them individually. I loved Chris as the sideline reporter. I thought he was perfect at that. I just don't feel like it's been. I don't think we learn anything particularly insightful from these broadcasts. And Josue had in the chat here, Gooden isn't afraid to call out the teams at times. I agree with that. I actually think Gooden was been really good so far this season at like, here's who screwed up. This guy screwed up. But it's not why they screwed up and how they screwed up. He's just saying like this guy did a bad thing. So I'd like personally the next kind of level down of insight. And I just don't think that that's really what they're catering to so far.
Yeah, if folks can, I would highly recommend trying the Toronto broadcast. This was when the Wizards played them. Alvin Williams was the color guy, the analyst, and it was really fascinating to see him work. So first of all, watch the Toronto broadcast just because they do things technically at a different and much higher level than basically every team does in the NBA. Really, they have some really creative shots that they do, especially on free throws. They have these like blurry background, playing with focus kinds of things that are really just cool shots to watch. But to Alvin Williams' analysis, he was very clearly pro Toronto. He was rooting for the Raptors, right?
Yeah, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, he was definitely focused on the Raptors. Virtually every comment that he made was talking about things happening in the game in ways that the Raptors could win the game. And he also had no problem whatsoever with criticizing their effort, criticizing their decision-making. He criticized these players really intensely throughout the game and would then follow it up with, well, what they need to do is, and it was like real analysis from a guy who was rooting for this team. And it was refreshing to hear because it doesn't have to be this like, cheerleading yuck fest.
Right.
You can do real analysis even for a team that you're rooting for.
And not offend half the fan base by saying they're all idiots by tanking and we should never tank. Mind you, the owner has now come out and said I should have tanked years ago. So I wonder if there's ever going to be a retraction from a certain play-by-play guy for that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe.
They would be at the top of my list of broadcast teams in the NBA I'd like to go have a beer with after a game. I think they're both two really good dudes, so there's something to be said for that. I don't want to crush them too much, but it's just not for me personally, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Kevin, any other thoughts from this game? Any of the young guys you saw at the end here that did anything that you liked? Jared Butler had a couple little things here or there I thought weren't terrible. Maybe there's some hope for him being like a fourth guard on a roster someday.
I don't really see that. I got to be honest. Not really. I mean, I saw them. Amarui, I like him. He plays hard. Nice guy. Yep. I don't think he's any kind of answer for them on any rate. So no, nobody jumped out at me. We talked earlier, with Coulibaly, I thought he was a little disappointing in that, garbage time stint where he just kind of got his calisthenics in. But no.
Ryan S. asked, thoughts on Kispert today? Meh.
I thought he was terrible. I mean, but a lot of it, Kispert is a make or miss guy because he really doesn't do anything else. And this season, he's gotten into trying to attack closeouts more. And I got to say,
a runner bank shot off the backboard. That was fun.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. My eyeballs, when I watch it, I'm like, I kind of cringe. And then I looked at the numbers and actually he's pretty good. I mean, he's a good shot maker. He doesn't turn it over a ton, even when he gets stuck inside. I just hate that play. And he's done fewer of them where he drives into the middle and then he stops and just sort of pivots around and looks for somebody to pass.
He literally turns his back to the basket, bent over the ball, and it kills me.
Yeah, I will say that he's one of the things he started to do instead of just looking for somebody to pass is now he'll get in there and then he'll pivot to shoot a fadeaway. And he's a good enough shooter that
I'm cool with that.
He makes them. I mean, today obviously it was a brick fest, but ordinarily he's a very good shooter.
I just don't like that kind of player anymore. We've seen enough of that here. The one thing, the one trick pony. And to me, those are the guys you fill out the end of the bench with. You don't draft them right outside the lottery. And that was always sort of a fundamental issue with the draft philosophy. Like you and I talked about guys we liked that basically it's everybody Memphis is drafted. But when you're taking that guy at 27, okay, great. Like if he turns into a serviceable role player, you've just won. Like you are now gaming the system, and you get, I don't know, Santi Aldama 30 or whatever he got taken. Like that's great. He's a better player than the Wizards have taken, than half their guys that have gone around the lottery. So to me, Kispert, if he's not hitting shots, either of these, if he's not hitting shots, he does nothing else for you. So I don't know. Xavier Young, hold on. I'm coming back to your question, buddy. Just hold tight.
I was just going to say that this is an opportunity for my my point that I've made a billion times. My speech. You have to take the whole player. So the era of specialists is waning. Kispert, I think, with his exact skill set, would have been a much more valuable player 10, 12, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think that with where the NBA is going, especially with all the switching, with the way the teams hunt weak defenders, you need guys who can do a lot of different things. And you cannot be a zero on defense. And not when there are actual stakes at play. And Kispert is the kind of guy who's going to get hunted and get run off the floor. And I think the Wizards would be wise to go ahead and be looking for another stop for him. Not because he's like a bad player. I think he's a fine player, but it's just that he's a specialist. And you have to take the whole player. You can't just take, well, he's a great shooter, we're going to bring him in for his shooting. Because then you get the defense, you get the lack of rebounding, you get everything else. That's just the way it goes.
I'm blanking on the dude's name, and I liked him pre-draft. The little white kid for Milwaukee that's the shooter. AJ, is it AJ Green? Like, he's basically just a shooting specialist, but they got him undrafted, and he's a steal for a team like that. Even a Garrison Matthews, that's a great pickup because you're getting 80% of what you get from Kispert without you're not paying him like the 15th overall pick along the way. And all of these guys, I think, are valuable players, especially on the rookie deal. I like Kispert up until the moment they have to pay him his next contract. And he's going to command way more than I think you'll ever get return from, just based on exactly what you just talked about. So
I think he's also a guy, it depends on like what team he goes to. Like if you drop Kispert on Milwaukee or Phoenix or the Lakers or, one of these teams like Boston, for Christ's sake, he would just be devastating in Boston because that's a team that can hide his weaknesses. The ability to make shots. The great players are going to draw the defense. They're going to create the gravity, and he's going to get wide open looks. And so that's not going to happen in Washington because there's nobody to create the gravity.
Yep, totally agree. So it never makes no sense. Asked if they trade Kispert at deadline. I think they'll consider everything they should. Blake asked, speaking of trades with Shamet, what do we want to see the Wizards get? Anything they can get, literally anything at this point. I don't care what they add. If it's second round picks that they can package with other stuff to move up in next year's draft, cool. I'm all for that. And then Ryan asked, is Jordan Hawkins that much better at everything else besides shooting than Kispert to be considered valuable? No, honestly, he doesn't defend anybody at this point. He's really skinny. He doesn't really pass that well. He's an elite movement shooter, so he has a lot of inherent gravity because you have to chase him around, and he's good from 28 feet. But there's hope that he can transition into being more, I think, maybe, but probably never is either. And that's why I had him at 20 on my board or whatever it was anyway. Like he'll provide value from day one as a shooter on a team like that needed spacing. But there's a limitation on what a guy can do if he's 135 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, right.
All right. The one I wanted to get here before we ended. So circling back to two questions from Xavier Young. So what is Wes Unseld Jr.'s style of play? That's interesting. I think we talked about that a little bit. It's pretty conventionally similar to most other coaching staffs in the NBA's. But then he asked, what type of player is an Unseld player? And I think that's a really interesting one. And the one I'm less sure about, because there are times where like Gafford, I think, will play a very good defensive game, and then he'll make one or two like obvious like screw ups and end up on the bench for 5 to 10 minutes straight. the other night, Deni got beat backdoor twice and got benched for the closing stretch of a game. It's like you punished Deni for being the worst he's been defensively all season. And he was still probably one of the better defenders in that game, even having an off night. So, like, what is a Wes Unseld Jr. player to you, Kevin?
Well, it's funny. I would have said Monty Morris.
Answer this, but I have no answer. Yeah, Monte has been perfect.
Yeah, I think I'm not. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't know. I'm not sure that Unseld has ever had a player that would be his kind of player. This is the thing is that they don't have talented players. You know, like I said, I joked Monty Morris because he's just kind of, you know, point A to point B. Tyus Jones is a bit like that. You know, I don't think that Unseld has really. It's a great question because I don't think he's really put his stamp on the team in that way, and he's certainly not on the roster construction in that way.
So thank you for the question, Xavier. Thanks for holding on and being patient there, because I thought that was a really good one, because I was honestly going to take a minute to think about it. No answer either. Maybe we'll find out just in time for them to fire him and move on to somebody else.
Well, you know, yeah. Anyway,
just to wrap us up here, Kevin, because I don't want to keep you all night while you're writing up the post game thoughts here. The Wizards
I'm just entering numbers at the moment. But yeah.
Okay, perfect. I can't wait to see what they result in. The Wizards are at the Pistons on Monday, 7 p.m. That's the battle for the top pick. And then they play the Magic Wednesday and the Magic Friday. The Magic are like really good, and just want to take a victory lap for a minute because I called that shit. Not that I'm special there, but I just really felt that this was a big leap year for them. But, you know, it's tough to play. It's tough for an NBA team to beat the same team twice in a row like that. So theoretically, maybe you could steal a game. If they don't win this Monday game, it might be a very long time before they win a game here. Like this is this is a big must win for them if they actually want to win a game right now.
Yeah. So okay, I have the Wizards, my prediction machine. I fired it up a few games ago, and for those who are not familiar, it's basically a spreadsheet where I go through and list out every. You know, I have the entire schedule, and it predicts the whole schedule and forecasts the. So it predicts the Wizards will win about 20 games this season. And so right now, let's see, they just lost their eighth in a row? Yeah, eighth in a row.
Yeah,
was this 9? No, this was number 9. So anyway, I have them as substantial underdogs tomorrow at Detroit. I have with about a 35% chance. Their next chance where they are a favorite. Well,
Portland.
It was December 21st against Portland, but they are now. It's basically a pick 'em. It's a coin flip game. So, but otherwise, it's a really, really long time before they'll be favored in the game again. In part because they don't play San Antonio until like mid to late January. So it's a 9-game losing streak right now. This could very easily spiral into a much longer streak.
I think they'll sneak one in here somewhere where someone just totally takes a dump on them. But yeah, to your point, it who knows when that could be or will be. And Detroit's floundering a little bit overall here. So I think if you want to get somebody, this is the time to go out and get them, honestly.
Yeah, they need to harvest their nuts, as another Wizard coach would say.
I want to ask you a question here, and I'm hoping you'll know the answer because I have no idea how they track this. So I was talking with a buddy on the side here about, well, Kispert, like field goal attempts against and things like that don't actually look that bad. So maybe he's a better defender than we all give him credit for. And there were a couple times in that Milwaukee game where he got absolutely dusted by one of the Milwaukee guards. Like Malik Beasley just drove by him like he was standing still and shot a little floater over Gafford and made it, or a little pull up or something like that. In a situation like that where Corey was the primary defender and just gets burned, and then he actually shoots against Gafford, that's a field goal attempt against Gafford, right? And does not count against Corey. Is that? I think that's how that works, right?
Yeah, that is how it works. The way that the league does it is their tracking is closest defender when the shot goes up. So there are some other ways where I think that may show up in the numbers, like in terms of like their possessions, because they have some weird formula where you'll see, 16.71 possessions. I don't know what that means exactly. I will say that. So I as I've told you before, I used to hand track Wizards defense for over the course of several seasons, and I still do it now and then. And I have compared that to the NBA's tracking data.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that the overall numbers come out to be pretty similar, but at the same time, it's not exact. It's some of the divisions are a little different. So like I was. Well, in the way that I track versus the way that the automated system tracks. So like in that instance, like you say, Kispert gives up penetration, guy makes a shot over Gafford, and basically all of that shot gets assigned to Gafford. Well, in my hand tracking, the credit for that, or the blame, is split between Kispert, because he was the primary defender, and Gafford. So yeah.
Okay. No, that helps, because there are, like, I don't know, there are a couple games where I'm like, they're hunting him. They're literally hunting him, but somehow at the end of the night, he's like, teams went 2 of 5. The team went 2 of 5 against him. And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Right.
So that's always been interesting to me. Couple stats here, and we'll just end the longest podcast ever of a 35-point blowout. Jared Butler, 13 points tonight on 5 of 8 shooting. This is the victory lap notes from the Wizards PR team after. Celebrating Gafford's 2 blocks. He's now recorded 10 multi-block games this season, and 10 is in all capitalized, which is tied for the most in the Eastern Conference with Miles Turner and Brook Lopez. So way to go, Gafford. Landry Shamet, 12 points, 5 of 9 shooting. He's now topped double-digit scoring in 4 occasions this season off the bench. And he's connected on 2+ 3-pointers in 7 total games off the bench this season. So Landry Shamet, elite bench role player. And Anthony Gill netted a season-high 10 points on 4 of 6 shooting, also amassing 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 17 minutes off the bench. So Anthony Gill, super sub.
Hold on. I just give it up to the Wizards person who used the word amassing. Amassing there. Yeah, that's great.
Amassing 3 total rebounds. Wow. Man, how did they do that? And then Amarui, 10 points, 4 of 6 shooting, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal in 12 minutes. He has now topped double-figure scoring in 2 whole games off the bench this season. So
wow,
victory lap. Yeah. Kevin, where can people find your work?
Biggest place, Bullets Forever. You can also follow me on Twitter at SoWizards, and you can follow my podcast, which is the hashtag SoWizards podcast. And
plug this most recent episode, by the way, which candidly, I'm only halfway through because the whole Thanksgiving holiday has put me behind on all podcasts, but amazing so far.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. And so what I did is I got in touch with a coach that I've been following on Twitter. And so it's a guy named Brian McCormick, and Brian has coached literally all over the world.
Yeah, every level, it seems like.
Yeah. It hasn't been to the NBA, excuse me, but he has been an NCAA coach. He's coached overseas. He's coached men, women, professionally, small towns, bigger towns. He's been an assistant coach, head coach, and he's written several books. Definitely check them out on Amazon. It's interesting. It's like fake fundamentals and stuff. I mean, it's fun stuff. And so Brian has not watched a ton of Wizards, which I thought was actually kind of perfect, because I wasn't asking him specifically to diagnose X's and O's. What I was asking was it was more of a basketball conversation, trying to think through, like, how would an experienced coach approach a team, a project like what we're seeing from the Wizards? And Brian gave some great answers, some really thought-provoking stuff that really expanded how I think about coaching. And one of the things that really came through is, how can I say this? That coaching at the NBA level is a lot more negotiation and coercion than it is barking orders, giving orders. It's not like for high school where you just bench kids or
you're not
yell at kids.
Taskmaster of things, right?
You can bully them. You can't bully the players. You have to work with them with where their goals are. And every person in the NBA is a grown adult person with their own agenda, with their own goals, with their own lifestyle, with their own desires, with what they think, with their own opinions about who they are, what they are as players. And it's up to the coach to try to cobble all that together into a team. And talking to Brian was really, really helpful. And it was actually really helpful in terms of thinking about Jordan Poole. For example, we spent probably a third of the episode talking about Jordan Poole. And one of the best things that Brian said was this idea of there's 2 major ways to help somebody improve. And one is correct mistakes, and the other is to expand possibilities. And what the Wizards are, it's a fine line to walk. But with Poole, because the Wizards are hoping that maybe he can become a driver of a high-level offense at some point in the future, they don't want to stifle the creativity, at least not yet. Now, I think you're getting to a point where they're probably going to have to rein him back in. But.
Right. You're 7th of the way through the season. I think we've got a sample size enough here or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. I would compel everybody to go out and check that out because it really does just apply to any of your favorite teams. And I thought I don't know, I watch a lot of college basketball. So seeing that's part of what I like about college basketball. Some of these guys are rah-rah motivators, and then other ones are like bang fist on the table kind of guys. And in the NBA, you have to have a very specific personality to be successful. And some of these guys are great assistants for that reason. And I'm wondering if Mr. Unsub Jr. falls into that particular category.
Yeah. We did touch on that. I don't know if you've gotten to that part yet where, Michael Malone in Denver he's willing to get in guys' faces. He's willing to be confrontational. And that lets somebody like Wes Unseld be the nice guy and to be more of the conciliatory and saying, look, all he really means is you just have to do this, this, and this. And then the player can do those things and get back in the coach's good graces. Well, you need somebody who can be confrontational. And if that's not Wes, he needs somebody on his staff, on his team, on the team, whether it's a player, to be that person.
All of the above. It seems like whatever this is doesn't seem to work super well. All right, everybody. That's been Believe in Wizards. Kevin, thank you for doing this. Look forward to reading the write-up tomorrow morning. Folks, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the little like button if you're listening to this on the YouTube feed. If you're checking us out, on any other platform, reviews are great too. So I appreciate you. We're brought to you by betonline.ag, and we will catch you all next time.